Hello and welcome back to 1000 Gurus. Please welcome my guest, Jay.
Hello.
Jay Kim J Kim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Cool, yeah, thanks for being here, Jay. I'm glad you were able to make it all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, right?
Super hot. Somehow I made it.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm really happy to be back in California for this brief Labor Day weekend. As I mentioned, the weather has been really
Normal to you?
frustratingly normal, I guess. Yeah.
Because we were talking about it. It's been scorching hot recently, but Jay's like, well, I'm from Phoenix, so it's like this all the time. So I'm like, okay, so this is normal to you then.
Yeah. I literally walked around my friend's neighborhood and to the park was like 90 degrees. Like to me, that the Californian in me a couple years ago would have been like, oh, it's 90 degrees. I can't walk around right now. But now it's like, it feels a little toasty.
Yeah. So you like the heat now?
More so than before, I
Or is it
guess.
just more tolerable?
It's more tolerable. I've
Right.
grown numb to the heat and so on.
We love being numb to things. If I could have my way, I might have mentioned this on the podcast, but I would move somewhere where it's cold, gloomy, ideally rainy, like Seattle or something.
Mm.
I do not like the sun or the heat, and that's just me. Not everyone likes cheesecake, but I just don't. I like the culture in SoCal,
Yeah.
right? OC, LA area. I like the diversity. I like the
Mhm.
food, everything, and the people. But I just hate the weather, and I don't like the beach.
Mm.
And so that's what people usually like about
Yeah.
SoCal is like the weather and the beach. And I'm like, it's not for me. But anyway, so I'll go into how I know you. So we met back in 2017, 2018-ish.
Mhm.
We met up through different meetup groups, social groups, and we started to go to karaoke together. And then eventually I invited you to my karaoke crew friends,
Mhm.
which now, like, there's a group of what, 6, 7 of us, something like that.
Yeah.
8 of us maybe. We used to work out semi regularly, and then you moved to Phoenix, Arizona in early 2023, right?
Mhm.
Currently work as a software developer. You mentioned how the church you grew in was like a cult, and eventually your family got out of it, which is what we're going to talk about a lot in this episode. And we have also talked a lot about relationships, dating,
Mhm.
financial stuff, just
Yep.
like, personal finance, fitness, career, etc. over the years. So we've had a lot of good conversations like in Chipotle or something like
Mm.
that.
That's true.
So it'll be good to have you and pick your brain on these insights. Are there any clarifications we should know before we go into intro topics? Anything I missed or got wrong?
No, we're good.
Yeah. So let's go into what you mentioned was our how we met at a social meetup group, right?
Mhm. Right.
And we went to this restaurant, 20-ish, maybe 20 more people, 20 plus people,
Yeah, definitely.
right around that.
Yeah.
And so we're a group of basically strangers, all there to
Mhm.
just socialize, hang out, guys in our mid to late 20s. And by the end of it, this is how I met Jay. We had 20 people, different bills, and we're not together. And so we wanted to split the check, right?
Mhm.
And so we're like, okay, how do we do this? And then people were trying to go rogue and throw in, oh, well, mine was only this much. So let me just throw in a 20. Mine was this much. Let me throw. And then it turns out we were still short by like $50 to $80, right?
Something like
And
that.
so Jay walks up and he's like, hey, I'm a math major. I got this. I can calculate tip. I kid you not, an hour and a half later, we were still short like $30. We had not
Yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah.
calculated. And the host ended up dropping $50 extra just to cover. And it was such a frustrating process, but it always stands out because now in our friend group, Jay would
I'm the
always
math
go,
major.
Jay would always go, I got this calculate tip. And I guarantee you, 90% of the time, it is not correct. And I'm like, Jay, what was that 6-figure degree for if you can't calculate tip?
Yeah, I mean, it's pure math. It's not applied, at least what I studied in bachelor's. That's the excuse that I give sometimes.
The excuse is that it's too fundamental,
It's
basic
too
for
it's
you.
too like it's the Everest of math, you
Jay's
got to
too
kind of
high
forget.
level for commoner plebeian math, like lower commoner math.
Yeah,
That
you
he's like,
can't kind of forget the easy stuff.
calculating 10, 15, 20% tip, that's too below me. I don't know if you remember the story differently, but that's how I remember
Yeah,
it.
it's pretty accurate. I don't really
Nice.
have anything more to add, but it's
Yeah.
just funny how that's how we started.
7 years later, tip is still a challenge for him.
Hopefully, I gotten a little bit better. So
I found that now you're kind of just like, you know what, let's just round it. And I'm like, Jay, you're literally a math major. Why are you just trying to take the easy way out? I always give him a hard time because that's how it's like. Okay. Anything else before we go into our main topics?
no, I'm good.
Cool. Origin story. First question is, where did you grow up and what were your main influences? Just the TLDR.
I grew up in actually two different places primarily. So I was
At the
born in
same
Korea,
time?
not at the same time. So I was born in South Korea, Seoul, South Korea, and my family immigrated to the States when around 2000, when the whole Y2K thing broke out, and people were worried that computers were going to shut down or something like that. So we came and we lived in Vegas. We moved to Vegas because my aunt was the only one that we knew in America, and she invited us over. So we went there, and then we lived there for about 10 years. So I from 8 to 18 basically. I graduated high school, and then we lived in SoCal for like 13 years.
Like
So
Orange
those,
County?
yeah, Orange County, Irvine, Anaheim, and now I'm in Phoenix. So, but primarily Vegas and California.
What about main influences?
Could you clarify that?
Yeah, so I don't know what informed you as a person, people,
Oh, okay, okay.
experiences.
I would say that my mom was a really big influence in my life. She was the homemaker. My dad was primarily the provider in the family. So my mom influenced me to really, I guess, and she was that stable emotional source, that rock in our family. Because my dad is not particularly, like a lot of Asian parents. The father is they do the providing, but they're not really emotionally available. That was very much the case in my family. So my mom, her kindness, her emotional kind of bedrock in her family, kind of influenced me to always kind of practice a kindness, be respectful toward other people. That's another big thing that she taught us, especially growing up in a Korean household. Respect toward your elders, people who are higher or whatever, like is very important in our culture. And she definitely taught us that a lot.
Mhm. Anything else?
My friends also, had a very big influence on me growing up. Like
Like how so?
the friends I have right now, like you and other people like who have challenged me to do better, to grow, and also my other friends who've taught me all sorts of things, anywhere from just kind of being generous, right? Being generous to others. Yeah, I would be surprised sometimes when some of my friends they're like, "Oh yeah, I got this, bro. Don't worry about like, I'll treat you this time." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'll get you next time." No, don't worry about it. Really, like they would insist, and this was like a regular thing with some of my friends. And I'm like, wow, like that's pretty cool how they don't really care about like being exact about that kind of stuff, but they're just more kind of giving because they love to give. So I have friends who are also like that. So that have influenced me in the sense that like it's rewarding to be generous for the sake of being generous, not expecting anything in return.
Right. So when
So
you mean exact, you mean like reciprocating like
like
dollar for
kind of like
dollar,
transactional, right? So
transactional, right? Like, oh, let's balance
like
the
I
budget.
scratch, you scratch my bag, I scratch yours.
Mhm.
And those friends, those few friends that I have that aren't like that,
Mhm.
they've kind of impacted me in, oh, I should follow that example and be more generous in that way.
Cool.
So
What were your life aspirations growing up, like as a kid, and then until like your college
it's
years?
it's funny, right? Because as a kid, I was always that kid that had the hardest time answering that question. I did not know what to say. I'm like, I don't know what I want to be. I don't know. It's kind of funny, right? Because there is a kindergarten book that, it's like a yearbook. And in Korea, like it asks that exact same question. Like, who do I want to be when I grow up? And I said, I want to be this like one Korean hero, this like
Mm.
anime character or something. And my teacher right next to it, she said, oh, an excellent person. So literally, I had no idea who I wanted to be as a kid. And in high school, that very much was true. But in high school, I actually tutored a lot in like for math, for like community service and stuff. So I thought, oh, maybe I could be a math teacher. That I kind of got an inkling of that in high school, and in college, that was actually what I pursued. Initially, I pursued a degree to teach math, and I did that actually for 2 years, and
You never
realized,
taught tip how to calculate
no,
tip.
definitely not.
Oh, okay. They never like I need tutoring on how to calculate 50% of this bill.
I'm like, you guys got this, right? There's apps that calculate TIF for you.
You're like
You don't need
you're
to.
like Teacher Jay, can you teach tip? He's like, no, that's too low
No,
level,
that's too,
commoner
hey,
math for
let's
us.
stick to geometry, okay, and algebra.
So basically, you kind of just fell into math because you were tutoring it, and you're like, "Okay, let's just go towards this."
Right, right. I enjoyed it. I'm like, hey, I actually find enjoyment sharing my knowledge and teaching that knowledge to other people. And I thought, oh, maybe teaching math will be a great enjoyment. And to my surprise, I found out that a lot of people do not like math. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks.
But that's a good thing, right? Because if people don't like math, then they need help to kind of get through it,
Yes,
right?
yes. And it's like I have interesting stories of like in my first year of teaching, I taught at an inner city school, like Lawndale, which is like pretty close. If you ever go on the 405, it's pretty. It's you see the sign if you drive up on the 405 North. I taught literally like 5 minutes away from there at Lusinger, which is actually the same high school that Russell Westbrook went to. If you guys like Russell, and so I taught there, and I have students that I had a particular student that he almost went to jail, and he was like he came to me after school and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Kim, I need to pass this test. It's gonna look really good for my judge." And I said, "Okay." So I stayed with him until like 8 p.m., teaching him, going over the problems again and again, and then basically on his test retake, I pretty much had to help him throughout like half of it. He passed, and then I thought, oh great, I thought I made a positive impact, I guess, in him. He doesn't have to go to, things are gonna look good in the court. And turns out, like a week or two later, he comes back. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Kim, I'm actually quitting school. I'm going to adult ed." I'm like, "I wish you luck," but I kind of was like, "What did I do all of that
Mm.
for?" But it was rewarding in and of itself. The fact that it was not common. It was a very rare experience, but I definitely remember some students for sure. Like the students who actually gave me the hardest time, I remember the best. And the students that talked back, that kind of gave me, you know, and I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss here, but like that gave me shit essentially for like, and they're like, "Oh, you're such a bad teacher," blah blah blah, and then like, but those are the ones that I remember the most for the most part.
Were you expecting it to be the opposite? You were expecting to remember more of the good students
Yes,
and
I remember.
getting the bad
Yeah, but a
students?
lot of the best students I don't actually remember, so it's just kind of surprising how it worked out that way.
Mm.
So.
What is your current career, and could you walk us through the journey of how you got to where you are now?
So my current career, I'm a software developer at Wells Fargo, so a big bank, and I've worked there. This year, November will actually be my 3 year mark at Wells. And how did I get there? Well, actually, after teaching, because I quit teaching after 2 years, decided the future of America in education. I'm not sure about that. At least, also the work life balance was not really good for me. So I decided to go back into grad school. I did it for applied math, thinking, oh, maybe I could be a community college professor. So I thought about that. But towards the end of my graduation of my master's degree, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a community college professor. So I started applying for positions. I actually got a startup offer, offer from a startup. Um, I worked remotely and I did that for about 5 months, but then I got laid off. And I thought, okay, I had to do some reflecting. Like, do I like this job? And I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So that's why I decided to go through boot camp. And then after the boot camp, I got fortunate to meet someone who kind of introduced me to this opportunity. And I applied for it and I got it. And
Sorry, so
here I am.
you took a boot camp because you were going to a grad program for something, and
Yeah.
then
So
you
my grad program's in applied math. So it's not
so
in
applied.
programming.
So then
So
your startup job was applied math position.
yeah. So my startup job I thought was going to be more just applied math, but it actually ended up being more software heavy.
Okay, and then
So
that led you to be like, okay,
yes.
why might as well just do the boot camp for
Yes.
software.
Yeah. So that's why I did the boot camp. It took about 9 months or so. And then afterwards, I got fortunate enough to actually find a program because I'm actually neurodiverse. And I know Wells Fargo and different companies, they have a neurodiversity program. And one of my friends from boot camp told me about it. I applied and got it. And here
So
I am.
how was the transition from math, applied math, to software development boot camp, and then to now what you do now? How was that transition?
So the transition was definitely hard, and there were periods where I was like, "Oh, do I really want to do this?" Right? I enjoyed it, but I wasn't. There's that little bit of uncertainty, right? Like, am I gonna really thrive in this field, right? But I decided, okay, like the money is really good, the pay outcome, the pay potential is really good. So I enjoy solving problems in general. Like it doesn't just have to be with coding, but I'm like, hey, coding is pretty cool too. So that's why I decided to go for it because of the income potential. Because as a teacher, teachers don't really make much at all, and I want to make more money, but I also want to do it with something that maybe I don't know for sure if I like absolutely love, but I don't hate,
Mm.
right? So yeah.
So 3 years in, you say you still don't absolutely love it. What aspects do you feel like don't really align to like a perfect alignment of a career
For me, I think I'm very much of a people person, and a lot of software engineering is just you on
at
your
a
desk,
computer?
on your computer, coding away your soul one line. Well, that's a joke. Okay, coding away, one line at a time. And sure, you have team meetings, you collaborate with people, but I like working with people. So I think one of the mistakes that I made when I considered transitioning to software is I didn't consider that aspect of myself or like what I really wanted. Well, for one, I was very inexperienced in
You weren't really
my
sure what it
career.
was
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. So I was like, okay. I saw the income potential. I'm like, okay, I like solving problems. In my startup, I'm like, okay, coding is kind of cool, right? So
Mm,
that's why I decided to do boot camp and I'll give this a shot.
yeah.
So.
So then what do you think would be a more ideal career for you? Like you obviously are doing okay in what you're doing now and the income is fine. My questions are, what do you think would be a better alignment if you could imagine, or like obviously there's practical considerations, but the next is what would your actual future career aspirations be from this point forward?
I think honestly for me, I would love to be a business owner. And one step that I started taking towards that is I started my Instagram channel for cooking because I love cooking in general. I would love to do something food related in the future, whether that's opening my own restaurant in the future. That's kind of a far off. It's not anything
Yeah,
like,
more of like a
yeah,
bigger dream
exactly. But I would love to work in the food industry
with people,
with
obviously, because
people.
it's a very people
Yeah, exactly, right?
organization.
And, like, I love it, and it took me a while to figure it out because in college, I hated cooking, believe it or not. But, like, I was that guy who loved to cook reheat Trader Joe's frozen food and thought that was cooking, and I was like, "That's great." But then, like, as I got older and I became a working professional, I realized, "Hey, I actually need to learn how to cook," and I started doing it initially because I'm like, "I think I can make the food better than this restaurant." And because I love eating good food, that was kind of like the motivator as to why I started. So, I would love to work in that kind of field in the future.
Okay.
So,
Cool. Nice. All right. Let's transition over to the next topic, which is your ex Christian Korean church cult, Munmin, right?
yes.
So, could you start off with maybe what is Munmin and like give the audience a TLDR?
So, Manmin is a Korean Christian. Well, it kind of presents itself as a Korean normal church, right? But it's actually a mega church. It's a mega church based off of Seoul, and actually, It's shrinked a lot in size over the years because of the scandal and the whole issue that broke out after the news broadcast and everything. But prior to that, it was a pretty big church. It kind of boasted over 100,000 members and so on and so forth. And sorry, what was the other part of the question?
More just like give us a TLDR of what it is.
Okay. And then, yeah, so it was a group, there's a senior pastor, lead pastor. But the main kind of difference between our group and, let's say, a standard church is that some of the titles that we would call our senior pastor, it's not just kind of pastor, but we would call him shepherd, right? And even that kind of slight difference of term is a bit jarring for some people. It's like, oh, like, what do you mean shepherd, right? So, but then we kind of rationalize it. Oh, that's what pastors are, right?
Mm,
Like pastors are shepherds.
like
Like,
metaphorically.
yeah. But then really in reality, it was a cult of personality, as all cults are. It was overly focused on one person, and his word was like God's word, right? His word was like, if he tells you to do something, you need to do it, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take this one step at a time, right? So, first question is, what was your journey like and experience of being a part of this church cult? what was it like in general?
Initially, I thought it was good, right? And
How did you guys get into it? Like,
so to actually explain that, so my dad actually found the group first. So he apparently was praying to like find a right spiritual leader or something like that, and he said he prayed for like 40 days, and then he was suddenly reminded of this cult, basically. And
so he
then,
had been exposed to it prior.
yes, he had been exposed to it because in 1999, 1998, 1999, there was a huge scandal that broke out that big Korean news broadcasts, NBC broadcast a special on Manmin in our group. NBC is like a big Korean broadcast network. And that was a whole, that was a whole shit show. Like some of the members stormed into the recording room and they literally stopped the pot. They literally stopped the show. And yeah.
So he found out about it because of a scandal on the news media about how this church interrupted a broadcast.
Yeah, initially he had kind of like a bias against this group, and then he started to go on the church's website and listen to the messages, got hooked. Essentially, oh wow, this is what I've been looking for. And
Interesting.
then
So it was like a first negative impression
right,
on like a
right,
media scale,
yeah,
but then he's like, "Oh, there's this church that I heard about," and then he
yeah,
started digging, and then he got hooked onto
right.
it.
So he got hooked on it. He's like, oh
Interesting.
wow, these are the messages that I've been looking for. And he started listening to it. And then my mom initially was like, what are you listening to? And then he's like, oh, you got to check this out. It's not this church. This group is not what we thought we were or what the group was all about. And then my mom cautiously started to listen. And then she wasn't quite exactly as hooked as my dad, but she started appreciating the messages. And then eventually our whole entire family started engaging or doing these services every week at home. And we were still going to our normal, like Korean Christian church that we went to locally. But actually, the interesting story is the pastor of that church found out that my dad started to listen to these messages and tried to tell him, hey, like, you shouldn't do that. This group is a cult. And then my dad was like, "No, like you don't understand." You know what I mean? Like my dad was starting to like defend this group,
Mm.
right? Even though he wasn't like explicitly a part of it, right? But he just started to get to know the group. Of course, he started listening to a lot of the messages. He signed up to be a member, like an online member on his own, right? And then he started become very fervent, I guess, about the group's message. And
What were
had a
there
conflict there.
certain parts about, now looking back, were there certain parts about their message that you think really called to your dad or compelled him to be like, "Oh, this I like what they're saying."
I think what really compelled him is like the kind of the so-called revelations of like, let's say about heaven, right? Like the leader, Jay Rockley, the leader of Manmin, he claimed that he received direct revelation from God, where like, what is heaven like? Like in detail, not kind of like in vague generality, like, but in like different parts of the Christian life, like for example Revelation or like Genesis. There's a lot of like hard to interpret things like the leader seemingly kind of explained a lot,
Gave
and
clarity to
it
those
gave clarity,
vague
and he really
things.
appreciated that.
Okay.
And he's like, oh wow. And then and also another kind of big aspect that the church or the cult really emphasizes miracles, right? And that, oh wow, look at all these healing miracles that have happened throughout the years. Nothing was ever like fully like peer reviewed or anything like that. It's all kind of anecdotal and like
Just claims,
testimonial,
right?
right? But then my dad is like, wow, right? Look at these miracles. It must confirm that these revelations are true, and he kind of developed the belief that, oh wow, this is the church, this is the group that I've been looking for all of these years. Yeah.
So then your family eventually got into it. What age were you? And then for that 10-year experience, could you give us the TLDR of what your experience was like personally?
So there's a lot to unpackage there, admittedly, and hold on, let me start over.
Yeah.
So the TLDR of my 10-year experience.
Like what age were you when
Okay,
when
okay.
you started?
So what age was I? I was a junior in high school, so I would say about 17.
Okay.
And actually, before that, we were sort of in no. Before that, we were sort of introduced to the cult, but I didn't really become actively a part of it until about junior year in high school.
When was that
So
introduction?
the introduction, I would say, it was around sophomore year
So
of
like
high
a year
school.
prior,
Yeah, a year prior. But then in junior year of high school, that's when I really started to get more
engaging.
involved.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, these messages are pretty cool, I guess. And for the 10-year journey, my dad actually became a missionary for the group. He decided to do an online seminary for the group essentially for like I think 2 years. He did that for about 2 years, and then uh, by then, like I was pretty much done with high school, right? By the time he finished, and he decided, oh, like let's start a church. Let's start like a branch church of this group in California, and that's actually part of the reason why we moved to California
From Vegas.
from Vegas to California to actually start this branch church of the cult
Mhm. Where was it?
locally.
Where was it at?
It was initially it was in our house,
Mhm.
right? And then there was another family who lived in like Pasadena who spent time with us, and we like kind of had service together at our home every week. And then I think about 2 or 3 years later, we moved to Garden Grove, and we finally got our own building. It's actually the one pretty close to H Mart, H Mart in Garden Grove. Like we were like literally 2 minute walk from there.
Okay, so
So
17, you start getting more engaged
yeah.
into it. Your dad started the church congregation
Mm.
in OC area.
Right, in Irvine.
In
That's
in
when
Irvine.
that's when we initially
Yeah.
lived.
There's a lot of Korean churches in Irvine, right?
Yeah,
'Cause I lived in Irvine for a long time. There's like a ton that my friends go to.
yeah.
So then for your 10-year experience, could you maybe condense down the high level what your experience was like?
So there's a lot that happened in those 10 years, but some of the big highlights are because sometimes people wonder like if you were a part of the cult, like how were you a part of it when you weren't in Korea? Because the group is mainly
Mainly
focused in
Korea.
Korea, right?
Mm.
And my answer to them was I was involved as much as I can. And what I mean by that is like the church has prayer services every single day from maybe like 9 p.m. Well, actually, almost every single day. On Friday, they have a separate service. And so, except Friday, they have a prayer meeting every single day from about 9 to 11 for so about 2 hours. So, what I did is, even when I was in college, I would download these prayer meetings, and I would pray in my car, like do like whatever the cult did, like in conjunction. Another kind of big highlight is every summer the cult hosted a big summer camp where people from all around the world came to kind of experience, I guess, miracles or experience being a part of like the atmosphere or like whatever. And I went a lot too. I went from I went in trying to remember the first year I went. I would say 2012. 2012 was the first year that I went to the summer camp, which is usually held in like the first week of August. I was a part of that. I convinced my parents sometimes to get me the flight ticket, which
Where was this at?
In Korea.
Oh, in Korea. Summer
Yeah,
camp in Korea.
exactly, in
Gotcha.
Korea. People come from all over the world to try to be part of the main church like big event that they host yearly. And literally people will come from China, from Europe, like from the US, like and in my part I try to be as part of the group as much as I can. One word that I would say to describe myself during that period that I was in the cult was, well, maybe a phrase. I was radically devoted. And so a part of that is doing these prayer meetings in my car, 2 hours. It would be freaking sweaty in my car, but I would do this every day, Like I would literally try to like go on campus and try to like reach out to people, right? To try to like get them to
Isn't that regular?
it is, but then
Like
like
that doesn't seem so outside of what I've seen other Christian
and
churches
and
sort
and,
of.
tha- and that's what's deceptive about this group is that
So what was different?
it looks like it's our belief in who our leader was,
Right.
right?
So it was
So
the perversion of the Christianity
yes,
was the focus around this human person,
yes,
the pastor, right?
yes. So the part that makes it a cult uniquely is because we believe that our leader, because
Unquestioning him.
you can't question him. His words are like God's words, essentially, right? And we, in Christian theology, like we believe that God is like God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And in our group, we believe that our leader was the incarnation of the Holy Spirit. So he's essentially God,
Right.
but then he would never call himself that. He would say he's a son of God, but not like how normal Christians use it, but how like, but he's special. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
So then,
yeah,
and on that point, right? So I get that there's this difference in how you portray the leader of the
right, right.
church, and I guess my question is more of you're saying you were devout and you were very intense to your faith. So far, what you're mentioning, like I have friends who are pray just as much and do all these like evangelizing,
Mhm.
and I think that's all normal. But I guess my question is, what were the things that were different about this, and then how did that affect you in the next 10 years?
Mm. So what was different? You know, in some ways, compared to like let's say a really devoted like Christian in a
More
standard church,
standard church, yeah.
like in some ways there is not a huge difference, right? But then I think for me, the real kind of difference for me is the amount of money that I will spend to try to really be a part of this group.
Mm,
Like these summer camps, they're not cheap,
yeah,
right? Like even just to take the flight every year.
sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Yes, exactly. A
Like
religious one.
those pyramid schemes where it's just like the real business is them just kind of extracting their followers to make money off of them for
Right.
the people at the top.
And then the thing is like and when I would go to Korea, right? So maybe like in my normal everyday life, it doesn't seem very different. But when I would go to Korea, you know, sometimes I would donate like $200-300 at a time. You know, and we have a lot of services, right? So well, you wouldn't donate that much every service, but
Still a lot of money.
exactly, like every year that I went to Korea, right, which was at least almost every other year. I feel like for 5-6 years or something like that. I gave probably like close to 400 or 500 every time I went. This is on top of like the plane costs, the cost to
Yeah, the
actually
cost of
stay
like
there,
going there,
and
yeah.
like so it was a lot of money for me, right? Like I'm a college student. I don't have a lot,
Yeah,
right? I'm not working like a full time job all the time.
right.
So yeah, fanatic and that
And just your
financial.
finances. So I guess my next question is what I want to figure out is how did it affect you personally in terms of your relationships with other people? But you also mentioned that obviously it affected your family, your parents' marriage, etc.
Right.
Could you maybe walk us through that?
Yeah. So one way that it's affected me is I became very judgmental of other people in general. So I was a student at UCLA and I didn't have a lot of friends actually during that time because I had this kind of like judgmental mindset in the sense that like
Superiority.
that I was better than our group, you know, the group that I was part of is better. We have the best teaching. We have the most complete teaching. And I don't want to be associated with anyone, even among Christians, that don't believe to the same degree that I
So
do.
like closed you off to a lot of
Exactly. It
people.
closed me off to a lot of opportunities, and I was really not very open minded to a lot of people. So I kept my circle very tight, and a lot of my friends were actually only from the group. And so that made me more isolated. It kind of made me more lonely. I didn't really get like a lot of the standard college experience that a lot of students did because I didn't really try to put myself out there and like meet people through different clubs, activities, or like whatever, right? Because I was scared, I guess, that it would like taint like my commitment or something like that.
Right.
So yeah.
How about your parents? So you mentioned that it affected their 25-year marriage.
Yeah, so the story behind that is at this I think it was around 20 I don't remember the exact year, but I'm going to say around 2018, right? So there is a church in Peru where the pastor died. So he was a branch church. The cult had a branch in Peru, and the main church asked my dad, "Could you take over?" Right? And he said yes. But the kicker is he said yes without actually even consulting with us.
Your family.
Exactly. Without asking my mom, without telling us, he just said yes, he'll go. And my mom was initially very mad that my dad didn't even ask her,
So
like
by himself or with you guys?
by himself.
Meaning like he was planning to go
Right.
by himself,
Exactly.
not even tell you guys. Gotcha.
Exactly. So he was, and then my mom was mad, but she eventually accepted it. Okay, it's for a greater cause. It's for the cult. It's for the glory of God. So like, but it really put a strain on their relationship, right? The fact that my dad went there, my mom would visit occasionally in Peru, like a couple times here and there, but Their relationship wasn't the same because they've been together in the same spot for like over 20 years, and all of a sudden they're abroad, they're apart, like
Mm,
thousands of miles apart. And she would occasionally go, but then, like my dad was also kind of struggling with his own issues, like trying to help manage the group, as well as like he was experiencing kind of like low energy. I guess it's kind of like male menopause, like the male version of menopause or something like that, but like lower testosterone. He had his own issues, and she told me, she's like, I asked your dad, like, do you still love me? Do you still have those feelings of love for me? My dad said, no. So that absolutely like tore her apart. So I would say that the cult ultimately played a big factor in separating my parents because my dad was obviously religiously brainwashed
right.
with the teaching from the cult. Oh, yes, God's cause over everything, right?
Okay.
And he took that literally.
That makes sense.
So,
So he
yeah,
reprioritized the cult over your family, and
yes.
that obviously had a direct impact on your family, his marriage, etc.
Yeah.
I want to ask, so, well, just to reference it because we haven't referenced it yet, but it was featured in the Netflix documentary "In the Name of God: A Holy Betrayal." Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember what episodes it was?
Episode 7 and 8.
Episode 7 and 8, right? So I guess try to give us like the TLDR so I can get through some of these questions. But do you remember what part of the cults that the documentary covered, and was it similar or different from your own experience?
To be honest with you, I actually didn't watch any of the other cults.
No,
It-
oh no, sorry, just yours.
oh, just mine.
Yeah, like how did it compare how it was covered to
Mm.
your personal experience?
It was actually pretty accurate. So obviously there are some sensational moments that they will kind of dramatize for the
Right.
sake of like marketing,
Right.
right? But then in terms of the accuracy of the actual like what happened, it was pretty accurate.
Mm.
So I encourage people to actually check out the episode if you want, because a lot of what I'm talking about is like my own personal experience growing up as like a branch church member, right? But the people who grew up in the central church in Korea, in many ways, they had it worse, right?
Closer
Because
to the
yeah,
source.
closer to the source and literally like, and one of the crazy things, right? And I experienced this when I would go to Korea during the summer camps is after the services, and it ends at night, right? On Friday, it ends at like 3 a.m. or something like that, right? 11 to 3 or 2, or
So
it
the
ends really
hours,
late.
right?
And literally, people would be standing in line in the streets waiting for the pastor's car to pass by so that they could slip in their money and hopefully get a touch from his hand and get a prayer,
Mm.
right? And it was like that every single week that he was there. And I've never seen that in any other group before. So it's
It's almost like trying to get into a Blackpink concert and Red.
yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly.
It's like
Yeah,
people are
exactly.
fanatics. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a series of three questions. Either we pick and choose, or if we can get through all of them. But one is, you mentioned the summer camps being surprisingly supportive experience. Second thing, you mentioned the dangers of religious brainwashing. If you can give examples. And third is, you mentioned an identity shift post cult. So obviously, it was a big part of your identity.
Mhm.
It's a shift out of that. Identity crisis is always tough. Oh, sorry. I guess the last thing is the value of open questioning and critical thinking. Do you have any ones you want to touch?
To be honest, I kind of want to touch all of them, but I don't think we'll have time.
Yeah.
So could you repeat just kind of just so I could kind of have it in my head again?
Yeah. So surprisingly supportive experience is
Okay.
one.
So
Dangers of religious brainwashing is two. And identity shift is three. And then critically thinking is four.
okay, sure.
Which one calls to you spiritually?
Ah, hold on, let me pray about it. I'm just kidding.
Pray to your pastor, ex pastor.
um, I'm well. I guess, and among the four, the two that really speak out to me is the identity shift,
Yeah.
and the religious brain. Well, the critical thinking and kind of the open questioning.
Okay.
And I think I'll start off with the critical thinking part of it. I think one of the biggest issues that I had that I didn't realize until I left the cult is just how dangerous religious brainwashing is and the importance of critical thinking and open, kind of like being open minded enough to question your own beliefs. Because I never did that when I was in the cult. You kind of form this framework of belief around your cult. It's the absolute truth. And there's no way that it could be false, right? So you don't question it. You don't dare to question it.
Like it's
right?
gravity. It's just there.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
true.
there. It's just self evident, and you could come up with some good rationalization that is true to yourself, right? But then after I left the cult, I realized, wow, like I was not doing any of that. I was not like openly questioning. I was not allowing
You
myself.
were just following
Exactly.
brainlessly.
I was following what I was taught.
You were a sheep
I
for the
was
past the
yes,
shepherd.
exactly. I was a sheep for the
You're
shepherd.
playing the role
Yeah, yeah,
perfectly.
yeah. And after I left, one of the things that really struck me, right? Because there's a lot of things struck me after I left, but one of the big kind of psychological things that happened to me is kind of this feeling that like a foundational part of what I believe was shattered to pieces. And for me, it's kind of like I had a couple years after I left the cult of like a limbo, of like, okay, what do I believe now, right? Like, what do I believe? What am I following? What am I living by now compared to like the cult?
So how did you move
And
forward? Was that like that was like right before I met you?
well, right around the time that I met you, I was in the
Oh,
process
you're still in the cult.
technically, but we were around 2018 when the whole issue broke out. Our family found out the truth pretty quickly because 2018 there's a big news broadcast about the leader of our cult, and if you watch the documentary, you guys will see that about 8 women sexually, they're claiming that the leader has sexually harassed them, essentially, and raped them, and that became a whole issue in the cult. And but we initially, I think every one of us denied, oh, there's no way that our perfect leader, our shepherd, could do that. But then we found irrefutable evidence, and actually in the documentary they mentioned this of like a recording, a conversation that two
Mhm.
people have,
So
and
at
then
that point, you had to move. You're like, okay, this is obviously
at that
factual.
point, I remember that day. I was just shocked.
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't even know. I didn't even know how to react. You know what I mean? I was just kind of shook. I think my mind was just kind of in this blank space where like what does that mean from this point on?
Yeah. So then, how did you move forward from that? Your whole reality was shook, identity shattered. So then, how did you move forward?
I moved forward by starting to explore a lot of the things that
You had
I
closed
didn't
off to.
allow myself to do, right? So like I told you that I didn't have a lot of friends in college. So one of the things that I wanted to do is to meet a new community of friends that don't necessarily believe what I believe. I wanted to meet a diverse group of people. And one of the avenues that I did that was actually through Meetup, right? So I went to Meetup with the intention to try to find new friends. And then I met people like you and like different people in the karaoke crew. And meeting those friends and like respecting each other, kind of like building that friendship, not necessarily just because we're a member of this group.
Within an organization like that.
Exactly, right? So that was very kind of healthy for me to kind of like, and my friends really, including yourself, really kind of like listened and kind of challenged me to do better. And I did exactly that. And another thing that kind of helped me is I started pursuing interests like fitness. I didn't really like work out a lot before, but I was like, hey, like if I want to achieve something, I should start with something that I've been meaning to do for years, but I never did. So I booked a personal trainer. I started like taking personal training for a couple months and felt decently comfortable and started to like train more on my own, as well as like reading books. I started reading a lot more books, educating myself on topics that I just did not know, and kind of learning more on kind of what I've been missing out in some ways, what I didn't allow myself to, I guess, allow myself to be exposed to
Mm,
in order of being in fear of being tainted,
right.
let's say, right?
So moving forward, in a nutshell, was basically just trying these new things and
Yes.
just working forward through what you were closed out to before. Last question on this topic is: how did you mentioned how did I return to my faith back? How you returned back to your faith in 2024, and how that has positively impacted your outlook and view on life.
So what people should know is I make a distinction between the cult and the faith of my childhood, right? And I grew up as a Christian, right? Not the cult and I that was great. I had a community. It was healthy. There was nothing wrong with being a Christian in and of itself. But because for those 10 years that we kind of strayed and fell off into the cult, I kind of associated churches and my cult. Even after I left, I didn't want anything that reminded me of the cult, right? So for about 4 or 5 years after I left the cult, I was not part of any church for the most part. I didn't even read the Bible or like do anything that a Christian normally would, but I allowed myself to question. I allowed myself to doubt. I allowed myself to explore ideas and never just kind of assume that it's true or like take it for granted. I allowed myself to like further kind of build these critical thinking skills. And really, and last year, what kind of caused a change for me? It's kind of funny, right? Because you and like a couple of other friends were kind of playing around with the idea. Oh, Jay, why don't you just go to a Korean, like church and like meet a nice Korean Christian girl, right? And then I was like, you know what? And I got to a point where, like, in my recovery, where I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Maybe I could meet a nice girl at church, right? And I did exactly that. I went to church, with because I grew up a lot around Korean Christians, right? Like even before the cult, I went to Korean church all my life. So like I went in hopes to find a girlfriend. I didn't find a girlfriend, but that's fine. Like, but that's what I went for. I went to go find a girlfriend, and I think you laughed a lot, and you're like, "Oh, I wish you luck," you know. And if you don't find Grace Lee or
Or Sarah Park.
Sarah Park, just it's fine, right?
Okay, so I guess I'll give some background. So, Jay obviously later bloomer in the dating market because of what we just mentioned, right? So he's for the last 5-ish years or something like that. He's been going out there, meeting people, dating around and stuff like that. He moved to Phoenix a couple years ago, and so every time he comes back and we hang out, we're like, okay, Jay, give us your dating updates. Like, who have you been dating? What do they do for career? Give us names. Uh, Horoscope, astrological signs, etc. Right? And so we have this running list of all the girls that he's talked to or whatever. And so we're like, Jay, we need more stories. So just join a church. We get you have a history of churches, but go meet a girl, and go on actual dates with people. And so he I guess he does that, and nothing really works out. And then turns out he ends up dating girls from Philippines, from the Philippines, literally a 16-hour flight away. So like, Jay, we said local girl in a church, and you went to it across the ocean, and now you have with a Filipino girlfriend. Happy for you, happy for
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
But it was just so ironic that we're like, date someone locally, and then he goes to the other side of the world and now dates someone else.
I'm very happy with my current girlfriend right now.
Cool. Anyways, I guess we didn't really cover the question because it was kind of like how it positive, like you got back into your faith as a joke or as like this funny sort of aside.
Mm.
But now you're saying now in you are have a better relationship with your faith.
So, would you like me to talk a little bit on that?
Well, we have to go into rapid fire
Okay.
now,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
fine.
guess that was the
Okay.
TLDR.
Yeah, I mean, like it started to kind of 10-second as like I started going to church to find a girlfriend, but instead I started to reconnect with my faith,
Yeah.
the faith of my childhood.
Yeah.
When I kind of started to go to church regularly.
So lesson learned: you can try to find a girlfriend, but you might find
Yes,
spirituality.
you
at the
you,
end of
you may
that.
try to find Grace Lee, but you find faith instead.
Faith Kim.
Faith Kim, exactly.
I hate it. All right, so we'll go into rapid fire questions. First question, billboard question. If you could put up a sign for millions of people to see, what would it say?
Um, wow, that's hard. I would say always allow yourself to question and think and love and believe. Just be free. Be free to do what you love.
Cool. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
My younger self, I would tell him don't just take things at face value and just believe. Actually, do your own research and allow yourself to kind of doubt. Because as a kid, I think I very easily believed a lot of things, right? Even up until high school. Oh, I guess it's true. But just allowing yourself, giving yourself the space, it's okay to doubt. It's okay to question. It doesn't mean it's a lack of faith. You're allowing yourself to be basically a person, like in that regard, living that experience.
In the last few years, what new behavior or habit has changed your life the most?
Behavior or habit. I would say dancing. I've actually explored I've for the past 6 months, and even prior to that, I took dance classes, but especially in the past 6 months or so, I've been fortunate to find a studio that I've been a part of. It feels like a community of people. We meet each other every week, and I feel that dancing regularly not only is fun and but it's a skill. It's a hard skill. Dancing is not easy by any way, shape, or form. Maybe it's
Unless
really
you're Filipino,
yeah,
then
unless you're
it's
Filipino,
we
I
come
guess.
out of the womb genetically just
You
dancing.
you come out of the womb dancing.
Yeah, dancing and boxing and nursing. How do you define success?
Let me think about that for a second. Success for me is living a life greater than just for yourself. So living your life with a sense of purpose in service to others.
How might that manifest for people?
So that could be, that could be through your career. It doesn't have to be through your career. Like I have friends who are nurses, I have friends who are teachers, right? They're in that field not because they make a lot of money, but because it's inherently rewarding to kind of raise the next generation to help directly deal with people who are sick and hurting and help them recover, and ultimately like service, right? Like do something in service to others. That doesn't have to be like through your career. That could be like literally through a nonprofit. It could be like volunteering your time. It could be all sorts of ways, but do something more than just your own goals and your own like making more money or whatever. Like there's more to life than just your own goals in life.
Okay, so now, now as your friend, just to bust your balls, how are you doing that? Because you mentioned you switched careers to make more money from teaching.
It's ironic, right? How am I doing that more? um Through my church, more recently, I will say.
Like how so?
Right? Like volunteering, like it could be like small things like helping set up stuff, helping clean up stuff for like the next group's meeting or whatever. But just like in taking time out of my day, like I could literally just go home right after, right? But just even taking like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to like help out, I feel like it's kind of rewarding. Like along those lines, there's other
Right.
kind of
There's always
volunteering
small things
things.
you can
Yeah,
do here and there just to be a more
right.
giving person to the world. Yeah, I mean, I was just kidding
Yeah.
because I was paralleling it to your career, and I'm like, wait, isn't that the opposite of what you did? Yeah. But yeah, I'm just joking. Um, what is something you've been pondering recently, or something you think about often deeply?
Pondering recently. I'll think about that for a second.
Don't think too long. We have limited time. Otherwise, you can pass on any of these.
Can we pass on that?
Favorite hot take or something you think most people would disagree with that you believe?
Let's also pass that one.
Um, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made in either time, money, energy, etc.?
um, the best investment that I've made is in terms of energy, I guess, is making new friends, right? In Arizona, like making finding a community of friends, like in Arizona
And
as well.
cultivating that.
So like just they add so much to my life, like so much joy, energy, like on a weekly basis. And I think that just helps me as a person, so, like in general.
Favorite recent purchase in the $50 to $100 range that has impacted your life the most in the last 6 months?
50 to 100. That's oddly specific.
We'll change it. It's basically a cheap purchase that
Uh,
you made recently that stands out to you as this has added value to my life.
Gosh, I buy so much.
So you should
uh,
have a lot of answers.
I would say a knife, like one of the kitchen knives that I bought. So it's not that expensive on first. I think it was like $40 or something like that.
Why this specific knife?
Because the way it feels when I chop stuff,
How did you find it?
I found it on Amazon because I
Oh,
was
so you
like,
searching up
yeah. I was like, oh,
great knives.
right, yeah, exactly, right. Great kitchen knives under $75
Do you, do
or
you
whatever.
remember the brand or anything, or he doesn't really remember? It's like better knife than I have now.
It's like one of those brands that are probably like drop shipped in one way or another.
Gotcha.
But no, like it's not a well known brand or
Gotcha.
anything. But
So it's just like you need a new knife.
I
It
need a
worked
new
well.
knife. It worked super well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Last rapid fire. Any favorite books, movies, videos, articles, or media that you share or recommend the most?
One book recommendation that I share to people a lot is actually Habits by James Clear. That is like the one self development book that I took a lot of notes on, right? And habit stacking and a
What
lot
are
of
some of
like the
the
different things that he talks about.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll link that my book summary in that, but what are some ways that you've applied it in your own life?
One kind of simple way I've applied that in my own life is in my morning routines, right? So, like before, I used to have no morning routine, but then I started kind of gradually stacking different habits and routines in my morning routine. So it may have started with like a simple stretch in the morning, like a 5 minute stretch, and that led to, oh, maybe I should do some breath work. So I do breath work right after my stretching. And then, eventually as time passes, like, okay, like I'm already doing breath work and stretching. Why don't I go for like a 10-minute walk, right? Right after that. So it kind of like in conjunction, it didn't happen immediately, but over time,
You
like
just
kind
build
of
on top of it.
build on top of it, kind of helped me to maintain like consistent morning routine that really helps me start off my day.
I like it. Yeah, I'll link it. Totally recommend that book. A lot of people reference it. Okay, we have come to the end, Jay. You made it. Congrats on surviving. We'll go to ending questions. So we always end with gratitude. Shout out to my mom for teaching me this. Jay, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my friends, my family, and my girlfriend too. Um, I'm really grateful for the quality people that I've met, both here in California and also in Arizona. My friends inspire me to be better, whether that's challenging me, hey, like, or like, as often JR does. Hey, so how have your goals been recently? Are you doing the goals? JR is like one of my friends who keeps me accountable and calls me on my BS if I don't do it.
It's my favorite thing.
Everyone needs a JR in their life, okay?
That's my favorite thing to do is call him out on his BS. Is like, really? You said you were doing this, but it's been 2 years now.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have
yeah,
not
yeah.
done it. So don't tell me you want to do it if you
And
don't do it.
one thing I'm super happy is my Instagram channel. I actually started this year, even though I've talked about creating some type of content channel for probably years now. But I finally got around to it. Now all I need to do is, set a regular cadence of releasing content, which I actually have about 2 reels worth of material that I just haven't edited and released to the world, but just be on the lookout.
Cool. All right, Jay. We're final ask from the audience or any final takeaways you'd like them to have from this conversation.
So if you remember anything from my kind of like the experience that I share with you, like in my cult, like is this like don't turn off your brain, right? Like always allow yourself to question, to doubt, to think. Don't take things at face value, but allow yourself to really think, okay, like is this actually true, right? Why is this true? Why do I believe this thing that I believe? And just it's a healthy part of living in this world, is what I will say.
Cool.
So
All right. Well, Jay, I will link your socials in the show description so people can check out what you're up to, your foodie accounts, your personal, etc. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate it. I will give a final shout out to Jay. I like some of my favorite things are to bust his balls on calling him out on when he does say he wants to do something but never does it. But I will say that even despite that, what I appreciate about Jay is that he's always very open minded to grow. And there are not a lot of people out there who are constantly trying to become better versions of themselves. So it's always nice to have these long conversations with Jay because he genuinely is very open minded about those sort of things. And it's nice to have a friend like him. He's a genuinely good guy. He's always there for you. So I appreciate you for that.
thank you. I appreciate you too, man.
Thanks. All right. So I'll do my final sign off. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all those fun things. Leave us 5-star reviews, leave J Love in the comments, and all that jazz. Reminder to always be kind to other people, especially yourself. And remember that you can always learn something from someone if you take the time to listen. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.